Hello and welcome to another episode of Page Burners. We are reading our way through the Malazan books by Stephen Erikson and Ian Esselmont. We're currently on Memories of Ice, which is the third book of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. We are reading the entire series by Erikson and Esselmont in publication order. The book coming up after Memories of Ice will be Blood Follows, for instance, and eventually we'll get to an Esselmont book. I'm not sure if I mentioned it already, but 100 pages a week is the pace that we are reading our way through these books, uh, depending on like some edition. 100 pages in some edition. I think right now I'm using the UK edition for setting our 100-page breaks. So today's discussion is going to be chapters 7 and 8, which is the beginning of the second subsection in the book. Yeah, I think that's all the bookkeeping stuff. We do a lot of the planning for these discussions and do some online text discussion on the pagechewing forum. So if you're interested in that, please consider checking out the forum. I think that's everything. So everybody else will go around introducing themselves and also talk about what they are most interested in discussing today. My name is Varsha. I always forget to introduce myself. And I'm most excited to discuss the interaction between Tok and Baljag. Well, that whole section with Tok, etc., in that chapter was interesting, but that is my pick for today. Tok and the wolf. Very mortal sword. Could you continue?
Yeah. My name is Dan, and maybe I think I'm most interesting talking about. Well, shit. Wait, I forgot. I had it. I rehearsed it.
You
it was
rehearsed
something
it.
to do with Atlanimas. Something to do with Atlanimas.
The
Maybe.
Tlanai, the wolf, the sister, so much happened.
The stuff with the Barghast.
Oh,
Yeah,
dude.
I think maybe it was that. It's the food Vargas. It's like
They didn't reach on time for the ritual.
what? I just wanted to maybe know what everyone thought about that, because I didn't remember it from my first read at all, and I was kind of like very surprised, but I didn't realize that. Anyways,
Interesting.
Carl.
Yeah, I'm Carl. I think the talk stuff was also probably my favorite. There's just so much going on there, and this was really when I fell in love with Talk, the younger, on my first read through, and he continues to be a character that I just care a lot about and I'm very attached to, and I love his dynamic with Tool and the Segula and Lady Envy and everything going on there. It's just very entertaining, and very pleasant and makes you feel things. And maybe I'll hone in on specifically actually the interaction with, oh my god, I'm blanking on her name. Too many characters to remember. Tool's sister.
Kilava.
Kalava, thank you. Yes. I was very touched by that scene, and saddened. And that's the thing I'm most looking forward to talking about. Steve.
Yeah, I'm Steve from pagechewing. And yes, there's lots of characters. There's lots of things in this section that I thought were interesting, but one of them was the Warrens. And it seems, because I've been complaining that Warrens are OP, it seems like they've been nerfed a little bit. So that's nice. So we'll go to Shannon.
I'm Shannon, and I can't believe nobody took this because I was last. I was already prepared for a backup. I was most excited to get the whole kind of secret origin of the bridge burners when Whiskey Jack sat down with Animander and just decided they were going to be BFFs now, and he would just tell them all about how the bridge burners came to be, as well as the kind of the origin of Quick Ben.
What was your backup?
The Gray Swords. Like, just kind of meeting them at the beginning of Chapter 7, and just kind of the whole concept of the Mortal Sword, the Shield Anvil, and the Destrant.
it is interesting that we got that like insanely cool, intense fight scene with the Kel Hunters and all that, and just like all the stuff that goes on there, and that didn't make our rankings. Like these really were just a couple very kick-ass chapters. There's a lot going on here. I guess they're also just very long, so there's a lot of room for stuff to happen, as it indeed does. So do we want to start at the beginning with the Grey Swords then, which none of us named?
Yes.
It took so long to get to the Grey Swords, because in my mind, I remember their story the most. I think it actually took a while. It's like chapter 7.
It's part 2 of the book is when we finally get to our first glimpse of Capustan and the Grey Swords.
It reminds me of in Gardens of the Moon how there's a whole cast of characters we don't get introduced to until book 2, and that really are just as important as the other characters, but are Erikson is not afraid to kind of hold things back and really pace things out appropriately. It was interesting to hear when we talked to him about it how much of that just seems to be kind of instinctual for him. Like he doesn't sound like when we were talking to him, I think I asked him about like how he decides how many parts in each book, how many acts, whatever he calls. I think he calls them books within the book. But it kind of, I guess he just goes with his gut there, and it works. I mean, we'll see where the Grey Swords go here, but certainly they're memorable.
Yeah. I also remembered it differently. For some reason, I thought we switch to Capustan and then we stay there and don't meet any of our other characters. We hang out with Itkovian and Carnadas and what's the other name? Brucalion for a long time before we, like, until the end of this book, I thought. But that's not it. We are still very much in touch with our other characters. And we even met Whiskey Jack in the camp, right? Like it wasn't even just contacts with the other people. We also went back to the other camp, which was interesting to me how much I misremember my previous reads. But yes, I was much more excited. Dan, they're coming for Dan. The
Good ice cream, Dan.
You're
you
very
didn't
fast.
share, Dan. I told you should share.
Maybe I live next to Shannon. You don't know.
Oh yeah, secretly next door neighbors.
Next door neighbor. So yeah, I was really excited to re-meet the Grey Swords and meet all of these characters again and meet them as individuals rather than the group that I had met them as last time, because that's always interesting because it's hard to get individualization on characters until it gets to a point where, like, until this reread, everyone was just a sort of blob. But now they're individuals who I can understand and see distinct speech patterns and everything for all of them. So
very quickly, my question for everyone is, this is going to be tough for the people who've read the whole series, but just talking about these 2 chapters, if you're able to kind of just like focus on these 2 chapters, I guess it's really mostly chapter 7. Which of the Grey Swords is your favorite?
Brucalion. I mean, the guy that freaking messed up. What's his name? Gothos's brother's face.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, he was awesome. It's hard to pick a favorite. The recruit, I'm fond of her. I kind of want to know if she's a different, like if she's someone we meet later on. But
and that was something, Varsha, I did want to mention about the Grey Swords. I thought was really interesting, as we learned early on there, is that they're like stealth recruiting in Capustan, because they don't allow women in the army, I guess, or the guard.
Yeah.
And so the Grey Swords are taking him in because they want to fight, and sure, we're going to need fighters for what's coming. So I thought that was a neat little just kind of character thing about them.
Yeah, yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. I really like that bit. And then that the women that they do hire are quite competent, as it turns out, because first she was the one who found the tracks, and then she tells Kovian off when she thinks that he's doing something that she disagrees with the necessity for that. Um, yeah, I like her a lot. I hope she gets a name and that we follow her more. I don't remember whether that happens, but at least as much as we met her, I like her a lot.
I'm always a
And
bit sad that they didn't take Hood's offer, because I'm like, it would be so cool. I don't know,
yeah,
it's like
that's
Death's
true.
Legion or something. You know what I mean? If I was
Mm,
him, I would be like, yeah, that sounds pretty metal.
mm,
I'll do it. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
But it would have required them to break the contract, and he wasn't willing to do that.
Yeah, I would have, but
And I respected him for that. I was like, oh,
just for some ice cream, Dan.
Well, I don't think
Hood's
I could be in
hierarchy.
a company like the Grey Swords because they just stick to the contract. I would just like, if it's a doomed scenario, I would
Mm,
just
yeah,
betray immediately, I think. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't
good
think
to
they
know,
know yet
Dan.
how
Good to
doomed
know.
they are.
Well, I'm thinking as a mercenary, though.
Don't trust Dan if all the chips are down.
Yeah, but like a mercenary should like kind of, I don't know, like the mercenary that I always think about is like the guy from the first Law trilogy. What's his name? But you know that guy. Whoever read.
I do know that guy, but I
Never
do
read
feel
it.
like
Don't
it's
know.
a spoiler with the range we're talking about here. So
Okay, but
there's
that's
a guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
very
Brandon
mercenary
Sanderson has a
type.
character like that in one of his books too. It's I think pretty like archetypal at this point in fantasy stories.
Yeah, but like because if you
I
always
think
stick
what
to your contract, though, you're gonna get destroyed if you're a mercenary, right? Like you.
Well, but what I really like about Bruchelion in this is that they're sworn to Fenner, who's the god of war. And so, like, what does that mean? I mean, war is not good or bad. Well, it's bad, but I mean, there's no morals to it. So he has to stick to something. Otherwise, they're just killers. And so I think it's what makes the Grey Swords actually kind of honorable. And
Yeah,
maybe
they
that's
do.
why he is the mortal sword.
Mm. They just seem a very honorable, compassionate bunch, right? Like Bruchalion stayed up late for Ikovian to show up, and he's like, "This is the least I can do. I'm the commander." And there's a couple of other instances like that, like when the recruit also argued to Ikovian that his decision is not based on compassion or based in compassion, and that seems to be something that they care about a lot, both being honorable and respecting the contract, but also compassion in and of itself. There was somebody else, I forget who it was, brought up compassion in this section, and they said, I don't need a justification to do this. It's out of sheer compassion. I forget if it was the Grey Swords or if it was someone else, but
I'm sure
yeah,
they
I thought that was interesting for a
Is
war
it
band.
Krupp?
Hmm?
Is it Krupp?
No.
Sounds like Yeah. Are you sure? What he
I mean,
does
Yeah,
for
I
for
don't
the
think it
main.
was
Maib. Yeah.
Crap.
I mean,
No.
he maybe doesn't use the word compassion, but that definitely is an act of compassion.
No, I
I guess
agree.
he
I'm
talks
just
about
talking about the quote.
faith and
Yeah.
dreams. I guess I just
maybe
read that
Crop
literally
when he
before we
gives
hopped
the
on.
bracelets
Yeah.
to maybe Ben.
Oh.
Could be.
No, it was
I'm-
a conversation between two people. One was asking the other why they helped a third person who probably, in their opinion, didn't deserve to be helped. And the second person said compassion. That's all the
You know
explanation.
who I know talked about compassion for sure, because this is my topic, and it was part of the scene I loved, is Kalava and Tool accuses Kalava of being incapable of compassion, which is a very, like, on my first read, actually first two reads, I don't know that I fully, like, appreciated the dramatic irony in their exchange there, that this entire book opens up with an enormous act of compassion from Kalava, going against her entire species to what she believes is going to save two little children, and obviously ends up a little tragic, and we don't know exactly what happened, but you know, it's just like so clear that Tool's view of the world is like wildly distorted, and I love him. And part of it is it's wildly distorted about everyone and everything, including himself, and that he thinks he is just like irredeemable, morally bankrupt. Nobody should like him, as evidenced by all his interactions with Talk, and Talk is like, dude, all when I see you is like a good guy, like you're my buddy, you're my pal, and Tool's like, but I am the traitor, I left everyone behind. So that part, at least I know they talked about compassion. I don't know if that's what you're talking about though.
That wasn't, but it was an exchange between Talk and Tool. I just looked it up. It was when they were talking of releasing. She seeks redress. Who is she? I think Kilava, is it? You must find a way to release them. It is difficult, a risk beyond imagining. But I must send you into the seer's embrace. I do not think you will forgive me. And Talk pushed his question forward in his mind. Release them? Why? An odd question, mortal. I speak of compassion. There are gifts unimagined in such efforts. A man who dreams has shown me this, and indeed you shall soon see for yourself such gifts. I wonder who this is. Is this Kilava? Is he talking to Kilava? I forget. Or is it the tiger?
Cruel.
Oh, right. Yes.
It's
exactly.
Cruel talks
Yes.
about compassion as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, this is the god. Yeah. Okay.
I want to say more about this, and I think we'll have to wait to see how the storyline plays out. But that conversation is insane, given the context of what happens going forward.
Yes. But on that subject of compassion that turns tragic, I think arguably a lot of this book discusses that as well, right? With the other act of compassion that turned to tragedy is the rebirth of Tatasale, right? Which was quite a tragedy for the Maib, and she is now questioning Krupp's gifts because of that. So I'm wondering if there are more such things that I haven't noticed yet, which are acts of compassion that have unexpected bad consequences. Cool. We'll wait for Carl for that one, if he has more to say about this. But right, we talked about the Grey Swords and Tool and Kilava. Did you want to say more about them, Carl?
Yeah, I these are characters that I really like. So these are some of my favorite characters in the series. Although I do think I'm getting much more attached to Kalava this time around. What to say without, because I do think part of my appreciation for this whole dynamic is as a rereader, but what I can say is I think there's just so much pathos, and you're talking about the tragic consequences of compassion, and I think that's one of the aspects of this series that sometimes it gets mistakenly labeled as grimdark, because sometimes good deeds are punished, and there's a lot about the universe that is, these people are not omniscient. Like, even the gods aren't omniscient, and so they will do things that they think are helping people, and sometimes the result is horrible. But I think that's in many ways kind of the root of all like real tragedy is, or the most affecting tragedy, like are people trying to do the right thing and accidentally causing their own or someone else's downfall, you know? And the story of the Talani Mass is one of, I think, immense tragedy, because they sort of acted out of a sense of like self-defense, self-preservation, and yet they became monsters that completely warped who they were on a fundamental like. You could, the argument is like, certainly the Talani Masks at this point believe that they fundamentally are just these devourers, these destroyers. They are the all-consuming fire that just eats up everything it touches. And I think the reality is more complicated than that. And it's just something I love, which is when you have characters, and in this case, even whole civilizations that fail to see, you know, the way their fire can warm people as well, to continue the metaphor. And like Tool is the prime example of that, as someone who we've been given like no reason to think of him as anything other than like a cool dude. And yet at the same time, we know he's done horrific stuff and has been a part of a genocide. And on top of that, you add in the family tragedy of Kalava being like his sister and the two brothers getting killed because of her refusal to join the ritual and, you know, to support the genocide effectively. She just went against her people because she was like, this is wrong. What we're doing is wrong, and I will not be party to it. I just think it's beautiful and melancholy, and it's speaks to, I think, a lot of the best writing in this series. And a lot of that writing comes into, it's very easy when people talk about like the world building of something being good to just be like, oh, there's like cool magic battles and like things seem like are really like badass and seem really old. But also like world building can be about like the story underneath the story, right? And like what it's saying thematically. Like world building doesn't have to be without like emotional depth beyond just like, you know, magical whatever spectacle depth. And I think Malazan is chock full of that, right? Of that depth of world building that's speaking to something deeper and richer and full of pathos. And so I just love that interaction. And then there was something I was taught. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop monologuing in a second. But there was something I was taught in film school, which is like, often if a scene isn't working, like a scene between two people isn't working, add a third character, because that third character will be like the X factor that will like completely change the dynamic. And Talk the Younger works as that here, where his perspective, like as an outsider, he views these characters and what's going on fundamentally differently, and it reframes everything that they're talking about. All right, I'm done.
I mean, it's also better so that Lady Envy can explain things to him, because if it was just Lady Envy, there's no need to explain anything. She knows everything, right? So, right.
So true.
A good
I love their
point of view
dynamic.
from, to see things from. It's more similar, like his point of view is more similar to ours, so it makes a lot more sense when seeing these points of view, like Erikson mentioned before, like these gods and stuff like that. We don't know their point of view. It can feel a bit difficult to describe things from it.
Which makes it especially tragic when he turns around and sees Talk on his knees after that interaction between him and Gilava. Sorry, Tool, not Talk. Tool on his
Yeah.
knees. Yeah, I don't do well with names that start with the same letter. I confuse them all the time. But yeah, I think that whole scene was brilliant. I agree with you. And also the oh man, I thought of something else. I forgot. Never mind, we can move on. But while we are staying with this scene largely, I guess we can also talk about the other stuff that happens there. I think it's a stretch to call it one scene, but it's while we are with these characters. First, the exchange between Talk and Baljag, which I guess Talk has some extra vision now because of his missing eye, and also with his interaction with Drake, or not quite interaction with his um, brief possession of Drake,
Yeah, did I
which
miss something? Why did he see that? Was there something that happened before that conditioned him, or?
I think his time in the Chaos Warden, plus it's heavily implied in these two chapters, which I completely missed the first time, is that Cruel is conditioning him for something, and he interfered with whatever happened to him in the Chaos Warden to make it so that he has this extra second eye vision somehow.
Okay. And so Cruel
There's
wants
more.
him to see what happened to Drake.
I'm not gonna like explain this, but I think there are things you can infer, like the Cruel thing, which is the X factor in this dynamic. There's a scene early on in the book where a certain very ancient god inhabits someone, and that someone is Talk, and they both are missing eyes. And I think that directly informs why he has this connection, Talk, with the tiger.
That was with the. Can I say it? I don't think it's a spoiler. We're discussing a previous scene, but the male wolf, right, who was looking for his companion, who became one-eyed in the prologue, and then he, I think he healed Talk and released him out into Atmon. I think that happened, but also we learn that Baljag was told by some god. Was the god named? I forget. By an elder god, that she's the last of her kind, and so she needs to like chill out somewhere, and she'll dream. and, uh, and yeah, I guess she's walking the world again now.
Does anyone remember the name of the wolf gods? Like, what are their names?
We know the name of the male one, I think.
Do we not know the female name yet?
I don't think it's been revealed. Yeah, let me check.
But what's the male? Because I was trying to like quickly find it since we're talking about him,
I
and
think
I
it's
could not find it.
Tog is
It
the
is
male.
Tog. Okay,
Yeah.
it is Tog. Okay. For some reason I was thinking that was wrong. Okay, yeah. So Tog is. I mean, like Tog is inside
yeah.
Talk.
And the female is also named Fandere.
Which I'm gonna be honest, I didn't realize until just now how Tog and Talk are like almost the exact same name.
Oh.
But I wonder if that's a coincidence. I kind of feel like it's probably not, or like you would think Erikson when writing that was like, wait a second, but like we saw it, like that's not a spoiler, and Karul and Lady Envy have no idea what this presence is, this bestial presence inside of Tog, but we the readers do, because we saw early in the book that scene happen where Tog pseudo possessed, put his spiritual magical essence inside Talk. And so, we got to wait to see what's going on there.
Got it. Yeah. So that exchange was cool. The sudden exchange with Baljag, and just how abruptly that happened. No, no preamble. Just he asks her a question and she responds. That was brilliant.
Very animal.
Mm-hmm. And like such a polite animal. Did you say polite? Is that what you said? No.
No, I just said like very animal.
Yeah.
Like it's just very like it's not gonna deliberate. It's not gonna like it just does. It acts. She acts. Brilliant stuff. Very moving and so sad to think of this last sweet, mythic prehistoric puppy existing on her own. Just very sad.
Yeah. Yeah, that was very sad, and he was just messing around with her because he didn't have anyone else to talk to, and then he got an answer he wasn't prepared for. And I liked Tool's backstory in all of this. With that was pretty tragic too, with how he's separated from his family. How and he explained the meaning of his name. That was quite sad.
It's interesting that with the exception of the Segula, that this like weird D&D group that's assembled are all these like extremely lonely like people who have kind of been, whether intentionally or not, cast out from, you know, their family, their, you know, their people, often kind of by choice, I guess I should say, with the exception of Talk. But these are all very like solitary beings who are nonetheless finding companionship with each other.
That does seem like a kind of an ongoing theme within the books, is someone being left behind and then trying to find guidance or companionship.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think this book in particular seems very concerned with, yeah, loneliness and community and the tension between the two. I mean, it's embodied by the Jagged and the Talani Mass, right? Who are the Talani Mass are the horde of, you know, undead. They are the ultimate, you know, community overall. And then the Jagged live on their own and literally send out their kids to figure things out once they reach a certain age. They're the ultimate individuals. It's, you know, ice and fire.
Yeah.
Steve, I'm curious, what's your feeling, your read of everything going on with Talk and Tool and, you know, that scene with Kalava and just like everything going on in this storyline?
It's a lot. There's a lot of things going on. I'm just mostly just trying to keep up, but I think the one thing that we've always tried to kind of find the when they mention the title of the book in the book, or kind of when it comes loose back around, just have a special moment. So I did enjoy that about the ancient memories, but also it seems like the elder gods, aren't they, like I think you guys mentioned a minute ago about people being put into place to serve certain roles or to kind of move things along, that they're preparing people to kind of move their chess pieces around the board. So that could be you know, something else that could come into play later. But
Yeah, without like getting into spoilers about what happens, I think I can say this much about Karul essentially like grooming Talk for something. This guy's talking about compassion, and yet is going to metaphorically throw Talk to the wolves. Like he says that, like that's explicit. That's his plan. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to play out. But like that's an insane dichotomy to me. Like what is Cruel thinking? What's going on? It's kind of cruel of Cruel. Pardon me, the bad joke. Like what I just I don't understand it. But I did love it. I loved reading it.
Maybe he just needs someone to do the job, and someone has to do it.
You know, I guess, but I don't know. It always feels like kind of a cop out. It's like, well, someone's got to do it, you know. So I'll pick you.
I mean, someone has to do it.
Like, why doesn't he do it? You know, I guess maybe the Warrens would die. I don't know how that works. We did learn that. That was new, right? That the Warrens are made of Cruel's blood.
Well, I think if gods act, then they could draw a lot more attention than mortals being affected in more subtle ways, right?
That's fair. You're right. There's definitely a difference in.
Because I mean, why would all the gods? Why would they just use all these mortals instead of doing things themselves, right?
because they're fucking cowards.
Maybe.
Sorry, I took a really strong stance there, but I do stand by that. It's the classic, it's just like sending people off to die for you. I think there's a reason often the more heroic characters, like particularly like heroic like warrior characters, are like, oh, I'm not gonna like ask anyone to do anything that I wouldn't do myself, But all of these gods are always sending other people to fix their problems.
I mean, there are practical reasons, though. Like, why you would want to send someone else to do the job. You do the job, because if you die, it's not, I don't know, it's very bad. I don't know, if I think of like Alexander in the olden times, if he died in any of those battles, that would not be very good for his Macedonian Empire, I guess.
But it's okay. First of all, he's the reason they're even fighting an empire, or forming an empire, right? Like, it's all sort of, I feel like, circular logic, where it's like the premise itself is the reason for it, Like, it's like, well, we're gods, so of course we're not going to do it. And it's like, well, maybe you should, though, Like, I don't know. Listen, I'm not a Cruel's number one hater, but not a cool move. Not a cool move. None of the gods come out of here looking good, though. And I mean, that's on purpose, right? We like one of the first quotes in this series, I think, that we highlighted. I think it's like one of the first things anyone says. It's like in the prologue of Gardens of the Moon is like, live a life like avoiding, like a good life is like one where you like avoid the gods'
The attention of the
eyes.
gods.
The attention of the gods, exactly. Thank you. Well, what's next? What happens after that? There's a lot we didn't cover with the Grey Swords. I don't know if we didn't talk about the Kell Hunters, or
Yeah, that's most of the next chapter. We can go back to the Grey Swords, but
the Lanai Mass. Okay, that's chapter 8. It all blurs together. I don't know which.
I
chapter
mean,
which.
we did start the Grey Swords by sending Itkovian off to find the Kell Hunters, but then most of the battle, etc., happens in the next chapter.
I like the parts with the necromancers and the were destroyed part that they reassemble with the bones of the Carl hunters.
That's awesome. Yes, they're great characters. I'm excited to read the novellas because they just, I mean, they're both like very scary. Like, I'm legitimately like really creeped out anytime they're on the page, but at the same time they're kind of like hilarious. When Corval Broach goes up to Pran Chol, the Bonecaster, and just like gets fucking like knocked on his ass. It's hysterical. Great characters.
But they also have pretty cool vibes. I don't know, the whole like mage with armor and a double-handed sword or hand and a half sword is pretty cool. I don't know. When you were telling before, describing all your thoughts on like, oh, I really love the part of Talk the Younger and all those relationships and stuff like that, I was like, oh, it's interesting, because the reason I think why I like this book a lot is just like the cool vibes of a lot of the characters, and a lot of the scenes were very like the Grey Swords and a lot of these battles and stuff like that. It's very different approach.
No, that's what's like. This is why Malazan is one of my favorite series. Like, it's one of my like top ever, because it has it all. Mm-hmm. It's like it gets really deep and emotional, but also it's just like really cool and fun. Yeah. Like this book, we're talking about like genocide and this mass murdering cult that doesn't just like kill people, but like rapes them. And it's like we're dealing with like all the worst things, but it's also like very funny and charming and cool. And it's just, the series is dope. Put that on a quote, Steven Erikson.
The series is dope. and it has dinosaurs with swords for arms, if you needed more convincing.
All the King, Jamale, are they all like that? They're not all like that, right?
Well,
Normal
I think
ones
only
have...
the Kell hunters do.
Okay.
I don't know what other categories of Kachain Jamal have for arms, so
We don't know yet. We've only met the Kell hunters, so
okay.
Okay.
up
So
in
I
the air
figure
at
like
this
you can't have a civilization without,
point.
some like, you know what I mean?
You thought it was bad with the T-Rex arms, right? Where they're
Yeah.
like, they can't pick
Yeah.
anything up. Imagine the sword arms. That was their solution, you know? They're like, we'll just stab it, you know? We'll
Yeah.
just impale whatever
And-
we want to pick up. It'll
and
all be
these
very
are-
squishy.
These are the firstborn of the matron too. The first
Oh.
thing that she produces.
Now, there must be something else. 'Cause
Yeah.
I remember a sci-fi book novella or something like that, which was like, oh, this advanced civilization, but they're like horses or whatever, something like that. So they don't have arms they can use to manipulate things. So all of their technology is just like psychology or psychic or whatever, but they can't progress physically more than that because they have no appendages to manipulate reality with. So it's like, how can these...
All of their technology is like one button that they can just mash.
Yeah. Well, that would like enslave another or race, I think, something to do with physical things for them, or like the
Classic.
the humans. Maybe they make
there
a
you
partnership
go.
with humans
That'll
to
work.
do them. Yeah.
I do love how in sci-fi the answer to like any sort of like, I don't know how to explain this, is like psionics. They're psychic. Like that's the classic move.
It was a bit more advanced, but I don't remember exactly what.
I'm not, you know, talking crap or anything. Like it sounds cool. You know, I love when sci-fi series get weird like that. I also love psychic powers, so you know, win-win.
But anyways, I'm just wondering what the other change will look like. I don't remember if they're described, to be honest. I guess the matron is described, but I don't remember her description either.
At this point, they have not been described.
Yeah, I don't think we've even met the matron.
Yeah, I'm saying in the
That's
future.
correct.
Like, I remember there's a description of a matron at some point, but I don't remember
yeah.
what it is.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But
I
they
think
still,
now that you
like,
mentioned it,
they're-
I also don't
Okay.
remember what a matron looks like.
But I was
Go ahead.
wondering, like, the Kachin Chamale are like Chamale, something like that. They're the first intelligent species. Is that what they are? Were they before the Jagged and the Mass? Right, they're before the Mass, right?
They're one of the 4 founding races,
Mhm.
according to
Yeah.
the
No, for-
appendix.
I don't know if we're ever, but I don't think at this point we're definitely not given an order to them.
Okay.
But yes, they're
They're-
definitely a founding race.
Do we know what the
They're
other ones
one of the
are? I don't
earliest.
remember.
Jagged,
Mhm.
Jagged.
Thelikai, and oh my god, what are their names?
Well, the IMAS.
We haven't met
I know.
them.
Not them.
No.
We-
It's there's the other one we haven't met yet.
We haven't met them, but they have mentioned the Fulcral Assail. That
Yes,
name's
they have.
They
Oh,
just
okay.
haven't
Yeah.
told us anything about them except it's a name.
Might be something we learn about someday.
Very curious. about.
4 years from now.
Probably not.
Yeah. It's like the matron, actually. Like we're introduced to the concept of the matron. She's left her barrow. She's really creepy. She's off screen, building up a lot of tension. We're not going to see her. She's just retiring in the Bahamas, living her best life.
If only, Carl. If only.
Yeah. Isn't it though very patriarchal how the only female-led society is shown in such a bad light?
Well, that we know
I'm
of
not
so far.
serious, but because it's obviously like like ants, and it's more like insect sort of thing, or like, but still.
I wouldn't say all of the like. Well, I mean, most societies are pretty gender equal. But
Yeah, in this series, I know Erikson has talked about how he's trying to make them
True.
as gender equal as he can.
Yeah, there is an empress after all.
But yeah, they
But-
the Kachain are definitely, you have matrons, and there's no talk of patrons, at least not so far, and I don't know if ever.
So the other thing is, I don't know about bad light either, because what we know about them so far Well, they are perceived as demons because nobody has seen anything that looks like them before, but
Mm.
they are of a
Yeah.
civilization. And we know now that they have taken the side of the Panion Domain in the war. And
Well,
they do
and to
awful
back
things,
you up
but
too, Varsha,
Mhm.
they're also the only ones we've seen so far are undead, and so
That's
this
right.
is
Yes.
clearly not normal. Like these
Mhm.
aren't the normal Kachain. These are just these ones.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna say counterpoint. They killed Harlow, but that's a strong argument. So fair enough.
But I thought we've had like whenever someone mentions them, they're like sort of like, oh, thank God they're all dead, because like they've been mentioned a couple of times and always seemed like they're like they're really, I don't know, bad or strong or
I'm
something.
I'm trying to remember if it was someone other than Telanamas because it is implied that they were ancient enemies of the Imas.
Oh,
Yep.
maybe true.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's all about perspective because also the Jag Huts are always talked about being awful, but from what we see, there was only a handful of them that were tyrants and are awful. Most of them just want to be left alone.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the Jagged helped the Imas fight the tyrants. So what was up with that ritual?
Yeah. I'm just
True
saying though,
that.
like dinosaurs with blades for arm gives very evil vibes. I'm just going with from vibes, you know? It's like, I don't
That's
know.
true.
Well, if you're
Those
just
sound like
going
a
off
good
of
choice.
vibes, then Animander Rake is like the Dark Lord.
Yeah, but he's like cool, you know? He's not like evil.
Yeah, and dinosaurs with arms aren't cool. Or not
Well,
arms, sword arms.
Sword.
Excuse
no,
me.
very cool. And
Dinosaurs with
more
arms
like,
are cool too. All dinosaurs are cool.
I mean, he shows up to parties as a dragon,
Yeah.
so you know.
That's true.
Hard to beat
Yes.
That's
that.
true. That's a
true,
fact.
true. I don't know.
So
Wait, you know what?
stalemate.
Actually, I'm sorry. What? Very quickly, sidebar. What would be a great Halloween costume? You guys know those those inflatable dinosaur like T-Rex costumes. Get one of those, but like put like swords in the arms and go as a Kel Hunter. That would be hysterical. I can't believe no Malazan fan has done that yet. Maybe I'll be the
With tiny
first.
knives.
Yeah, exactly. Just little knives. Yeah,
To match the T-Rex arms. Yes.
that's amazing.
That's funny. But yes, I love that. Yeah, we talked about, was it Corbel Broach getting knocked down by Pranchol? It was it was because he wanted to ask about this greatest necromantic ritual of all time. He had questions. And oh yeah, I also liked how the Tilanamas are like, undead, undead. We're gonna fight them. Leave this to us, thank you. And there are thousands of them. I felt a lot of peace when they showed up. I hate zombies, zombie movies. When zombies show up, it's always horrible. Bad things are about to happen. But now it's a relief that the Imas showed up, right? Also, they're not mindless zombies, of course, there's that. But well,
No, they're not. If anything,
I mean, they're
Kachain are the
not.
mindless zombies.
I'm trying to think about maybe philosophical perspective of what Tool says about pure flint having everything pointing in the same direction. They all do what is told them without asking questions, and he wasn't pointing the same way. So it feels a bit mindless in that sense, but I think that's going too far.
Well, I mean, in a literal sense, they're not mindless. Like, I think that's almost the point of Tool, is that they can make decisions to break away, or Kalava for that matter. But that's exactly, I think, thematically what Erikson is exploring here. I mean, again, this is classic Erikson and Esselmont taking a fantasy trope and throwing it on its head, where you have undead hordes, you have zombie hordes, they're mindless, they all attack, they kill things, maybe there's like one leader who's like, the lich or whatever, the necromancer who like controls them all. And that's ironically Shadow Throne, right? In the original, I mean, before he was Shadow Throne, when he sat on the first throne, like that's what gave him the right to command them all. So he just sat on the right throne and they were like, yes, Lord, we will do whatever you say. And yet we've seen it's actually much more complex than that, right? Similarly with, the Jagged being like, I'm sorry, they're orcs, but they're like peaceful hippies who just want to like live in their towers in the middle of nowhere.
Well, it is a bit different though. I think it's been mentioned that he's like, oh, like you don't behave like other clan in mass, right? By
Yes.
the junk in the first book, I think.
Yes. As evidenced by the fact he's alone.
Yeah.
Because most of them group together. Again, they're like the community, not literally hive mind, like they're like mob rule writ large, you know, or civilization, you could say. I mean, in some way, that's what civilization is, right? We all kind of agree to the same unspoken rules.
Agree is a big word given, you know, some recent politics, but I don't think we all agree on many things. But yeah.
Well, yeah, sure. There's certainly a lot of disagreements in the world, but you know, I think the idea is that it's this like that's what you're taking the metaphor and to like, you know, in fantasy you can make the metaphor real. I think Stephen Erikson even talked about that. It's the neat part of fantasy.
Nice.
Cool. What's
think
next?
Well, I'm trying to
Are we
decide
just gonna
between these
guess?
topics. The
Okay.
bridge burners and
Quick Ben,
well,
maybe?
I'm just trying to jump around the topics because it's kind of hopeless to go the whole thing sequentially because we talk for far too long. But yeah, shall we do the bridge burners and grey swords? The origin
Yeah.
of the bridge burners.
Let's do it. That was Shannon's.
Yeah.
Let's hit it. You want to kick us off, Shannon? Uh-oh, you're muted.
Let me unmute myself. Before we leave the Grey Swords, I did want to say, I think the concept, because I wanted to talk about the concepts of them, which I thought was interesting. So apparently in this world, you know, you've got these gods, and then they have these three people that represent them on Earth, or on, I don't know, is this called Earth? I don't even know. But what I think was interesting is like, well, okay, well, like, what about other gods? Do other gods have these? And like, and also, how does this, you know, like we know this, you know, we've met the Destriant, and it very specifically calls him kind of like a martial priest. So he's like a warrior priest of Fenrir on Earth. But how does that fit in with Haboric? Was Haboric just a priest, or was he more than that? Like, I don't know. Like, it kind of made me think about that. And then also, you know, you got the mortal sword that seems to be kind of leading them, and this is like his, you know, sword on Earth. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting because does that kind of what led to the creation maybe of the first swords? You know, you know, on these human empires have the first sword, and are they following after what these gods had their mortal swords? But also, apparently, this was, at least according to Quick Ben, you know, this was a concept that had been dead for a long time. Like, I guess maybe God, or at least Fenrir, hadn't had a mortal sword, or at least as far as Quick Ben knows. I mean, that's the other thing, though. Does Quick Ben really know? Because these guys come from some, you know, city in southern Genebacus, and he's from Seven Cities. Would he necessarily even know this? You know, I don't know. Just there was a lot there. There was a lot packed into these concepts that I just think are fascinating. That I guess we'll probably explore, you know, moving into the future, maybe more characters, future books and stuff. But it kind of gets introduced here.
I got to be honest. Having read all 10 books, if you ask me, like, gun to your head, Carl, define a shield anvil, I could not define a shield anvil.
Yeah, that's.
What about
in
the
chapter
other two,
7,
though?
they tell you the other two. They give you the definition of the other two right off the bat in the very first beginning of chapter 7. But then, you know, here's a Covey and the shield anvil, and I mean,
like,
without
he's
getting
kind of a
spoilery,
scholar,
that's going
but...
to. We'll learn more about him as the book progresses. But yeah, like, what is he? I don't know. Like, what is his specific function? Because, like I said, you know, one's the god's sword on Earth. One is his warrior priest shield anvil.
I get the sense he's like a tactician.
Even that name doesn't make sense to me. No, okay.
But beyond that, I don't
That's
know.
not more.
Yeah.
I think as we move through this book, and you know, we'll have to really just pay attention, see if we can give a good definition to that concept.
Yeah, even the combination of words, I think one of you mentioned, I don't fully understand. A shield and anvil together. What could that mean?
Maybe using
Yeah.
the
So
shield
I think of an
as an
anvil, I
anvil.
think of a sword.
Hmm?
Well,
But
maybe the
would you say?
shield acts as an anvil and you hammer something on it. I don't know. Maybe it's some sort of some you're
Oh,
hammering some
okay.
philosophical thing
So
like
something's getting hammered
yeah,
on the anvil
Mm-hmm.
like
or
I
on
don't
the
know,
shield.
like you're shaping like I don't know the followers of Phanera being shaped on the shield anvil by
Oh,
the something like that. That's how the vibe it gives me.
yeah. He does. He seems like he's more of the on the ground commander, and so it would make sense for that role to in
Okay.
some way be like he is the anvil in which the troops are being hammered against. I just don't know why the shield. Like
Well, because shield is like
why not just the
war.
anvil?
Anvil is not like a war utensil; it's a craftsman's item. So to make it more Fener aspected, that's why.
But it's also distinctly like it's not a killing tool. A shield is used to protect.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
interesting.
the sword is the killing tool. The shield is the other side.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's a very like it's an evocative title. Like of all the titles, actually, I think Shield Anvil was always the one that stood out to me the most in terms of like it. The language is just it's very rich and interesting to unpack. It's just unclear what it means, which is part of it, I guess.
Yeah, I can't even say I understand the difference between Destriant and Mortal Sword. Like, I guess we can sort of guess a little bit based on what we saw them both do in this chapter. I mean, you guys mentioned it, but it's not super clear to me how a warrior priest is different from a god's sword
Well,
on
I
Earth.
would say we don't see Bruchelion use magic at all. He just has a sword and he cuts the
I
guy's
see the
face. Or no, did
priest
he even use a sword on the guy? And so
Yeah.
the priest he's really a
has
sorcerer.
access to
He's
the
the guy
magic.
using the
Okay.
magic.
Okay, hot
that's fair.
take.
But more than that, because also they were also in this book they were healing people through the Destriant's power.
Mm.
So there's something also else going on there because like magical powers flowing through the Destriant. All right, what were you about to say?
Hot take, because I have fun being needlessly simplistic. I'm actually blanking on probably even the more correct word for what I'm being, other than a pain in the ass. But if you know D&D, and all of this stuff was based on D&D originally, Destriant is a cleric, and Mortal Sword is a paladin.
Does the Destriant fight? I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember. Okay.
They definitely fight.
Okay.
No, you're right. That's how you could kind of that's how those two could be broken down. Like
That said,
paladin is the fighter.
When I really think about like even in D&D, when I think about like cleric and paladins, like it does feel like there's a lot of overlap there. Like I don't know that I could like I know mechanically how those two are two different classes, but I don't know that I could explain really how they function fundamentally differently.
One is 70% fighter,
least...
30% priest.
I was gonna say
swaps it.
I guess it is just like percentages.
I think
right?
the hard and fast rule back when Steve was playing would have been the cleric's not allowed to use bladed weapons. That was like the big thing they're not allowed to do. They have to have maces or staves. So yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah, it still doesn't really explain the shield anvil though.
Yeah, I don't know.
They don't have a quick and easy analogy like that.
Shield anvil is the bard, obviously.
Yeah, he sings.
Oh,
I can't wait.
oh,
can't wait for him to break out in song.
Is the bard required to know the history of everything, like the law and the history of the place?
Well, I don't think he's a bard. That's what I'm saying.
No, I know, but like, is the bard supposed to be?
I would be the one knowing the history. I think of all the characters, probably.
Okay. But moving on, I think before we come back to bridge burners, I want to make sure we get to Steve's topic for the Warrens and Krull's blood. Do you want to kick that topic off, Steve?
Yeah, just we know earlier in the series and up until recently, I had talked about kind of feel like warrens are an easy way for people to escape bad situation, just because you can kind of just travel through the warren and you're fine. So I was happy to hear that it seemed to be more going on there, and the whole uh, the the way that they work was a lot darker than I expected it to be.
Yeah, the guy's blood.
But what is it actually like? Because
Very
we're obviously not
graphic.
swimming in blood, right? So is Cruel the world? Is Cruel like in parallel world? What's I don't know.
The
Try to
Well,
universe.
it said, and Steve, you can remind me. I think didn't it say something like his heart was like dragons and darkness, not it didn't say that, but like Carl, well, darkness, and then Starvold Neverlane, and then the like his veins are the Warrens. Is that how that? I mean, it was very
Kind of like
visceral how
But what
how
does
it
it
just
mean?
described it all.
Oh.
So
his body, right?
I,
It's kind of like they travel through his body.
I mean, his body is the room
Yeah.
is the Warrens. Yeah, like
it's
literal.
not.
Like there's the metaphor, but also it's semi-literal.
He's not the Elder Warrens, though. I think that's an important
No, but
distinction to
I
make.
think but do they power? But maybe they power it because the heart, that's what pumps the blood through the veins. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, the chamber is the
'Cause it-
darkness.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the chambers
So
of the darkness. The chambers of the heart are darkness and Starwell Dimmerlane.
do I
Yeah.
imagine it like a
So
huge guy, and then there's like in his hand the word not darkness. The gods live in his body. Is that I'm trying to picture in my mind, but I
Yes.
can't.
Yes.
Is that
Yeah.
how it's okay?
I mean, well, okay. So I think in the most literal way, you have to think of him in some ways as, although the metaphor is this is his body, he is disembodied. I don't think it's literally his body. It's just like his like essence, his like,
Okay.
and even his corporeal essence is imbued within all the Warrens. Like it is what makes them exist.
So he doesn't really have a body. He's like a pervading
Well,
essence.
he
Does he?
can, because he physically appears. He can
Yeah.
appear in a physical form.
Okay. That's not like a projection or something, it's not really I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of has to be the projection given what we learned about his body. Unless his heart is somewhere outside, which is quite possible. Like that's anatomy you could have for a god.
But okay, how are we defining body? Because like, can't he have multiple bodies if he's a god? Like, what's stopping him from just having like a second corporeal form that, yeah, is in a way a projection, but is like he's here walking around on two legs. Look, there's Cruel, and then also he's kind of everywhere.
Well, and you could compare this easily to the crippled god, who we know he fell and parts of his body fell all over the world, but also we see the crippled god. Is this guy in this tent that we've met a couple times now.
That's true, and it's not just his torso speaking, for instance, terrifying as that image is, but it's a whole picture.
The thing that really breaks my brain is if Byrne is the planet, and Byrne is one of the Warrens, and the Warrens are made of Cruel's body,
Yeah.
but Byrne is also the body of the world. Is Byrne inside Cruel? How does this work?
They all are.
Is Byrne in a way also Cruel?
It must be then.
But aren't they all? So the other thing that's not clear to me is if the Warrens, are they other planet things, or are they only relevant
In some way, they
to
are.
Earth? Which
No, the Warrens, we know enough at this point to know that they exist as like separate. I mean, I don't know if we would call them planets. Like, I don't know if they exist in the way we think of as
kinda.
planets. But yeah, exactly. Like pocket dimension, like a different, realm, a different, like closer to
They
like
even
the
have
idea of
their
like the
own life
multiverse.
forms.
Right.
Because the question I have then is the crippled god, he's apparently from a realm that's completely alien to this planet, right? That's why he's poisoning Burn. If Shadow Throne was brought down, for instance, maybe his blood won't poison Burn. Actually, we don't know that. But maybe it's just a foreign blood that's poisoning her regardless. But I think a lot of the poisoning and alien aspect of it is highlighted. So if all realms are accessible from this place, is the right parallel, maybe parallel universes with
Yes, I think so.
the crippled god having come from a different parallel universe, I guess.
Although,
the crippled gods comes from
Yes.
outside reality of the
Yeah.
Warrens. It's like some even extra thing.
yeah,
Well, that's why I think that's why I called the Warren's pocket dimensions, is because the crippled god's from like a whole
Different
another
universe.
reality, like a whole nother
Yeah.
universe.
A shared
like a completely
dimension.
different universe. And I think that's, I mean, Steve has talked about it. I mean, that's pretty explicit. Like, he came from outside of this.
Well, part of the difficulty is like trying to, like, they were given all these explanations very sort of subjectively, and so they use language
Mm.
to describe how they use it. Like they say Warren to describe a bunch of different things, and so different Warrens may not actually be the same thing. You know, it's not like we use the word planet and it means something very specific and scientific. It's like, because they say demons, for example, and that just means any like being that they don't understand that comes from outside, you know.
Dinosaurs with the knives.
Yeah,
His hands are
like the demons come from Warrens. From what we've seen, at least the ones we've seen, like they just come from. Is it the Darkness Warren? The ones we've mostly seen.
Shadow.
I think so, or Shadow. No, it's Shadow, because they're Shadow Thrones. Yeah.
Apt.
So, but
And
yeah,
the
they're
hounds.
not demons like from hell, like we would think demons. They're just from outside their world.
However, I think that is like, I feel like that's hell and heaven and earth, kind of like the relationship between those and sort of like traditional, you know, what like Western Abrahamic belief systems, I think is like similar to how the Warrens work within this reality, that they're all like kind of interconnected dimensions, and then there's a universe outside the main universe, which is where the crippled god comes from.
Makes sense.
Another way to think about it too is, if we want to get a little different, I think is like you know anything about like Norse mythology, or honestly like any mythology really, about like you have all these different, the underworld, and like, you know, Norse mythology, there's all the different heims. It's like Niflheim, Muspelheim, Asgard, Midgard, you know. These aren't planets. Like in the MCU, they made them all like planets, and these are all aliens. But like in the original mythology, these are like different planes of existence that are all connected. I think that's kind of how the Warrens work. And instead of the world tree,
through the world
Yggdrasil,
tree.
yeah, right. In Norse mythology, it's the world tree, and I think in Malazan, it's Karul.
Okay.
Oh, I see. So it could also be just a bunch of worlds that kind of like in, what's that series I'm thinking of? The Philip Pullman series.
His Dark Materials.
Yes,
Yeah.
his Dark Materials, like all the parallel Earths that have different powers, maybe, and could be a different planet.
Kind of.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just humans don't recur,
I'm not
so
sure.
it's not like a traditional like multiverse thing.
Makes
Like
sense.
humans come from. I mean, I don't know about that. Who knows? Maybe humans come from multiple places. Unclear.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I was just wondering about the alienness in a world where things are accessible. Like there are already different realms. So what is alien about the crippled god? But I think we have some possible explanations. That's good enough.
It's like,
Anyway, Steve, are you more or less confused than you were when you started this topic?
I'm a little bit less confused, but the whole it being his body, I kind of felt like he somehow, I don't know that I read it as being literal, his body, just more like it's kind of like it takes something out of him, or it's connected to him in some, like it's taking his essence or his energy away, like it's I don't know, but it sounds literal, so I was trying to wrap my mind around what the hell's
I think you're right. I think it's a metaphor. I mean, I think it has some truth, as many metaphors do, in that it speaks to the relationship. And so, like you were saying, it takes something out of him. It's like the magic is powered by his blood, so it's like his life essence. The body, meaning that there's some aspect of his corporeal existence that is acting as these new Warrens. But yeah, I don't know. It is tough to tell.
It's very, very odd.
Yes. This was one of the world building things that really sold me on this series. I'm going to be honest. When I read that Karul was like, his blood magic was what was like created all the Warrens, I was like, that's so cool. Like, I'm here. I'm down for it. And dinosaurs with sword arms, which at first when I heard that concept, because I knew of the concept before like reading the series, I was like, that's so silly. Like, come on. And then I get to them in the series, I'm like, these are the coolest things. They're so scary.
I know that I don't think they look anything similar, but does anyone else always think of Oblivion Gates as Warrens in this? I just always.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that could. Yeah.
I actually think that's a really good comparison. Yeah. That's definitely close to what I imagine, at least.
And with
What-
Warrens being nerfed a little bit, that's nice too, because they were getting a little out of control. I mean, he had to bring out the nerf.
Yeah, they're all
nerf the Warrens.
poison now. Everyone's getting a little feverish using them.
I mean, talking
Burn is dying.
I'm connected. Quick, I completely did not remember that this was the story of Quickman. He's basically a fusion of a bunch of powerful mages and things. I did not remember that. Does that mean that it's like his personality also like a meld of all these different people? Or just their power? Or how does that work? Do we know?
I think that's a good question. So it's funny you say that, because that's like the only thing I did remember from all this Bridge Burner stuff. So you have 11 of these 12 mages all put themselves into Quickben's body, I guess, to survive this Raraku journey they were on. And we don't know Quickben before, so it's hard for us to be able to easily just say, oh, this is clearly a different character or not. But I'm gonna say yes. I think it is a different character, because we do get the description of what's his name, a Daphon Dalit, as being this middling sorcerer of whatever he was, Minas, I think it was. So it's easy to kind of say, okay, well, maybe he just has more power now because he has access to these other Warrens. But no, I think it's more than that. I think he also has the knowledge. I think he gained. I think what we get out of this, maybe Adaphon is the primary kind of personality, but he changed through all of it. Is what I think. Is my read on it.
I think the same. I think Adaphon Delat is the primary personality, the main kind of controlling, as evidenced by the fact that it's his body and he had some sort of relationship with Kalam and all that. But I just have to imagine that the other souls influence him, and that he came out transformed. I mean, that's the whole point of Iraku. It's like a
well, and that also,
warrant of transformation.
That also
right?
fits in. Yeah. So what we also so all right. So this part, Whiskey Jack, he gets an invitation from Animander Rake to come to his tent and talk to him, and I didn't love this part, because again, I don't understand why he's just suddenly like, I'm here to be your friend. Like, why? Like, where did this come from? Why all of a sudden you guys buddy like this? But whatever. Yeah, I'm willing to deal with it, because we do get this whole story about how the bridge burners came to be, which is they went into Raraku chasing these sorcerers, and then it turns out that their guide Kalam was a traitor the whole time. However, this whole thing changed. And they spell it out. Yeah, that Raraku changes you. That it turns you into something different. So the bridge burners, this unit, whoever whatever they were, I don't know if they ever gave us a number or anything for them. They turned into the bridge burners. This is the event that happened to it. Their past was burned away. That's where the bridge burner name comes from. And now there's something different. And then like Quick Ben and Kalam have decided that we want to work with Quick Ben rather than, and which I don't know. I'm kind of curious to hear other people's thoughts, because basically, they turn on the rebellion. I mean, straight up, or not just. Well, I don't know. Is it a rebellion at that point? But the rebels, like the people that are against the Malazan Empire, like, because it tells us, like, at the end of that section that they're right outside of Gisdanisban, and they go and like 40 soldiers, and then Quick Ben and Kalam are able to take out like a couple hundred soldiers or rebels in this fort or whatever. And so I was kind of like, so they just flipped on 7 cities just like that. And I don't know, that was kind of weird. Like, I don't know. I'm interested to hear some thoughts on like why they all of a sudden just were pro Malazan out of nowhere, considering that at the beginning of this they were leading them into a trap. Like, is it just Quick Ben that made them think, oh, I want to follow this guy? I don't know. So yeah, but anyway, that's my part.
I don't have anything strong to add to that, because I also think it's a little strange. I mean, Erikson can get away with it because we don't really know anything about Kalam and Quick Ben before that, other than they fought on the side of the whatever, the holy guy. But like, it's I also agree that like it's hard to understand the motivation there. I don't really understand what happened.
I think it's just one of those situations in which like you have the good characters, you have a protagonist, and then you have the other co-character. So it kind of we kind of recognize each other, and they, you know what I mean? Like, there's not a good reason.
Carl, that does go with the idea of it burning away their past. So like they're leaving their past behind, who they were, and now they're joining the.
Well, why wouldn't the bridge burners give their past and join the rebellion?
I don't know, because Shadowthrone has like a whole army of Talon MS. I wouldn't turn traitor on them either.
So.
I mean,
Okay, so go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Done.
I was like, they would have betrayed that before doing the whole crossing the desert at that point. I think there was no need to go through all of that. It's just because they were winning, right?
Well, I assume they changed during it. Like, I don't know. Are we really given how the bridge burners changed, in this? Because I don't know if we really are. I mean,
they just become Fiddler, tough as hell. Like, they're just described as like looking like they're made of stone.
Because the Fiddler we meet at the beginning of it, doesn't seem like quite the same Fiddler later on. He seems, he's young. He's wearing this big ridiculous hat that apparently was the helmet of the guy who Dasimulter cut his head off. So we can see, maybe that's it. Maybe it's just they became hardened.
But I mean, when there were 2 mages left, couldn't they have said, "Oh, we're gonna switch, so might as well, without me having to die and put my soul into you, let's just wait for the other guys. We're gonna give up anyways." I don't know, but it's a very cool story. It's fine the way it is. I'm just saying, in real life, probably.
Yeah, like, why wouldn't one of them be like, well, why can't I be the main?
I think.
Well, okay.
Like, so one guy's been stealing the souls, right?
Yeah, my thought is maybe it wasn't like cooperative. Like, maybe that's part. Like, maybe Quick Ben's lying. Like, maybe he kind of forced it on the others, because his whole thing is he is a mage of Mianus, which is the illusion warren. He is a liar. That is fundamental to what he does.
Yeah.
And he's a trickster. Like, he's like constantly giving everyone these like very like strange, quirky smiles. Like he that's like his vibe. And so I think it's very possible that he bullshit his way into getting a job, basically, and also a lot of power.
Yeah, I will say, they did. The only explanation given in the story is that Dalit was the youngest of them, and the most healthy, particularly. So it's like, the idea was that maybe he's got the greatest chance of surviving, compared to the other 11. That's the only thing that they gave us in the story. However, I do like what Carl said. Yeah, I mean, from everything we know about Quick Ben, yeah, he could have bullshitted his way through it.
So I think well, Whiskey Jack's theory from his version of the conversation between him and Quick Ben at the time was that the first person who died probably volunteered, or maybe Quick Ben even convinced them, you're dying anyway, so give me what you know and I'll make good use of it. But after at least the first one, maybe more, he got a taste for it, and then maybe it wasn't that much of a choice for them anymore. So I think by the time it got to the 11th one, maybe they weren't in a position to negotiate. Quick Ben would have taken what he wanted.
I mean, maybe there was no position to negotiate after the first one, because
Yeah,
one went into Quick Ben. Then what happens if somebody else decides to do it? Are they going to lose that one that went into Quick Ben? That seems
That's true.
that seems more risky.
Mm,
To now,
that's
my
fair.
soul went into this person, and now our souls are going to go into somebody else. So maybe that's how he bullshitted his way through the rest of it. Was just like, well, I've already got 5 of them, so
Yeah.
it's got to be me, right?
That's fair. Okay, I have a few defenses to make. But first, I don't quite agree that it was out of nowhere that they changed sides. We get the sense that the Kalam and Quick Ben were playing this silly game and they wanted to, just get away with it. They thought Raraku will kill all of these guys. They are natives of the desert and they'll die in a couple of days and then they'll leave. But there is this sense of increasing respect for them, which I think maybe gets to a point where yeah, I'm going to fight with these guys until the day I die, which I can get behind that. And
that.
and the friendship between Whiskey Jack and Rake also, they explain it to each other when Rake invites him over and says, this instinct that you meet people for 2 seconds, but you think, yeah, that's a guy I'd like to get to know more of. So that's all that was. I want to get to know more of you, which then Whiskey Jack sort of reciprocated with. Both of those things I could get behind, and
I think with Rake it's different though, because they're brought together by necessity, and they realize they get along. While Quick Ben is kind of all right, you got me cornered. My hands are in the air. Don't shoot. And then he's like, so I have all of this magic now. Maybe I could be one of you. And I mean, maybe for him it's just a survival thing, and it combined with respect,
But he
I don't know.
wasn't quite in a corner though.
Well-
he only had the illusion of looking cornered, but it turned out that he was quite healthy and probably capable of fighting because he's got 12 warrants now he has access to.
I can kind of agree with Varsha saying too, because they went through this desert with them, and let's say they really respect them and want to fight with them, and then also let's take what we know from the rebellion from the second book. 90% of the rebellion sucks. They're just rapists and murderers. They're. I mean, I'm sure there's some genuine people there, but most of them are just awful. So maybe they were like, oh, I respect these guys. I respect Quick Ben. I respect the bridge burners. I want to serve with them.
It's hard to say without knowing their relationship with their home, and all the people there, and because I mean, clearly they're not zealots. They're pragmatic. I would say pragmatism in general kind of defines the bridge burners, so in that way they fit right in. But it's other than surviving the long trek, I just don't know that the bridge burners had done anything to because they were the enemy. It's not just they're that's full blown defection. It's not like Rake is I'm gonna help the Malazans conquer now, which is what Quick Ben and Kalam actively did. And so that for me is harder to wrap my head around. But I'm not gonna say it's unbelievable, because again, there's enough mystery in the past that whatever. But I don't think it's the high point of the writing either. I want to say Steve multiple times has unmuted himself and has been very polite and let us talk. So Steve, what did you want to say?
No, I was going to say about Rake and Whiskey Jack. it seems like it's a cool when the two cool characters meet up and want to be friends and they team up and they have the whole Apollo Creed, Arnold Schwarzenegger handshake from Predator, and they have like the But it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I know Ray Cat, he there was some kind of mention about mortal lives and how they can, kind of they can be fulfilling, but that's kind of what I thought it was. Like he's like Varsha, you mentioned that he saw something in Whiskey Jack, like there was some kind of connection there. But for as long as Rake has been around and for as much as he's been through, it seems odd for him to find that kind of thing all of a sudden. Like, but I mean, it's cool that they're teaming up. It just didn't. I don't know that it made a whole lot
Or
of sense.
counterpoint, for as long as he's been around, he's found it harder and harder to find that. So when he sees something, even for a little bit, he makes something of it. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's cool. Like I said, it's neat when they team up, and you want to see that, but it's a little convenient. But it's cool. I mean, it's one of those things where it's cool, but it's like, oh, I'm gonna let it slide because it's cool. Whatever.
Don't think about it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was kind of my thought. It was like these two, they literally just met, really. And, he's giving him these kind of like deep secret about Quickben, really. Like, this is something nobody knows about Quickben. And just seems kind of like, which, I don't know, which kind of makes me feel like maybe Whiskey Jack needs to go talk to Quickben and be like, oh, by the way, I'm handing out your secrets to people.
Yeah, really.
Cool.
No respect at all. Yeah, it's like for your homie, your guy, like you're just like dropping his big secrets like that. That's so true.
So we thought they were over their animosity. Maybe this is how they take it out. We know Kalam briefly helped the rebellion in the last book.
And I
What we just haven't seen yet is Whiskey Jack is actually just a gossipy little bitch, and he's just letting it all out. He talks about everyone's secrets behind their back. We just haven't gotten to see that side of him before.
Yeah.
It could be, he's heroic, commander of it all, but he's a gossip. Yeah.
And I did also, I haven't read the rest of the series, obviously, but I did wonder if Rake knows something we don't at this point about Whiskey Jack, that he serves a purpose and he's kind of putting him in a certain position to do something later. So kind of, it's almost like he's using Whiskey Jack and trying to befriend him in a way just to use him later for something, but I don't know if that's the case or not.
Yeah. But I mean,
I'm
we
trying to
had
gauge
similar
everyone's
things
reaction.
for... Sorry.
Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
No, because it just reminded me, doesn't this happen also when there's the Barghast spirit, right? That Quickben finds? And then suddenly the Barghast spirit just
Yes.
gets,
I did want to talk about him, too. The new hairlock.
There's only one hairlock.
Yeah, only one.
Well, there's only one hairlock, but I'm sorry, but
yeah.
what's his name? Shit, I wrote it down. Hold on.
Or something.
Telemandus. Like, look,
yeah.
while I was reading this earlier today, I was thinking already I'm going to have to say, I'm sorry, Steve. I like Telemandus better than Hairlock.
How dare you? How dare you?
Like, he's not psychotic. He's rational. His goals are like make sense.
That's all the reason to
it
not
less
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Shannon's gonna get booted from the site. It's over.
Sorry,
You're getting
but
blocked.
I really liked.
No,
I
the
really
chaos
liked him
is
from
why
what I
Hairlock
read
is
today.
cool. That's why we love him, because he's chaotic.
The chaos is yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
It's
I
'cause
really,
he's fucking
it's like, but but this guy, he's like, oh, my people are stagnant because our gods are trapped. Maybe if we let him go, my people could actually grow and change and be better. I'm like, wow, that's
Who wants to do that?
that's an interesting goal.
Boring.
Yeah.
Who wants betterment of people? You're right. Who wants
I
that?
want Hairlock.
Hairlock definitely wouldn't want that.
Raising hell. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I'm exactly. I'm here for raising hell, personal power, ambition.
Yeah.
Hairlock has it all.
But yeah, to continue what I was saying before.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, man. I love this little stick snare. I think he's awesome.
Yeah, he's cool. He's cool.
Go ahead, Dan.
This is one series. This series needs more like dolls turn. People that are in dolls. Like that's just
Preach.
it's a whole damn thing.
Dan, go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just gonna say that he does the same thing that we mentioned other characters. He just tells the whole story to Quickben.
Mm-hmm.
Just trust him. and before he was literally saying, "Oh, these necromancers, they almost got the secret from me."
Luckily, they didn't know.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you the secret. Like, he doesn't know this guy's a good
I
guy.
thought that was hilarious, Dan. Yeah, like he's like, oh well, these guys were seconds away from learning the secret that would have changed everything. Here, let me tell it to you. It's like, you don't see the Stick Snare. You don't know this guy.
Yeah, that's just a lot of the good guys know the good guys, right? You know immediately, I guess.
I guess that's it.
You vibe check, you know, they figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, this guy seems cool. He seems like 12 people in one. Yeah, I like him.
Yeah,
He seems like 12 people in one. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's got a lot of personality.
It's complex.
that
Yeah.
witch woman he went to meet to ask about Burn, she called him 12-souled, right? And there were several
true.
references to the
True.
fact that he has access to 12 souls / warrants in the preceding chapters, and I was keeping my mouth shut because I knew this story was coming.
Also, going back to Gardens of the Moon, like pretty early on, it's referenced that like he has access to a bunch of warrens, and no one knows how the hell that's possible because most people can only use one.
Yes.
Cool stuff.
Completely. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, the last thing I was going to say on this topic is this scene is what makes me love Quickbin. Like, I like Quickbin before, but like how he plays this, and that he's like kind of like, again, kind of untrustworthy. Like, he's kind of grilling whatever this, I'm going to go a stick snare. That's the stick snare is easier to remember. That yeah, that like he's like, what's your motive here? Like, what makes a life precious, or like whatever he's asking. Like, he's like being tough. His eyes are veiled. I remember that's the prose description. You know, he's like being very mysterious, and it's just very like, it's both this act of great compassion, but also like you can tell there's this like internal motivation going on with him where he feels, you know, he wants to know this story. You know, he's kind of a wild card. He's not completely trustworthy, which makes it extra funny that Stick Snare immediately trusted him.
And he's another character who's left behind, right? Like we talked about earlier.
Stick Snare, yeah. True that. Yeah, he's finding, well, at least a person, 12 people, as it were. Pretty good community to start out with. You get 12 friends in one.
Yeah. So, while I guess I was going to change topics, but since we're talking about the Bargus and the stick snares, I think, Dan, your topic was the Bargus, and was it about the boats and the inverted trees? We didn't cover that yet,
Yeah, I
right?
had forgotten about that part. Of the boat. I wonder, are the boats and all this sort of thing, are they related to something real in like our history with the Neanderthal? And I was trying to think, but I couldn't think of anything like that. Does anyone
isn't
know?
there all this evidence? I mean, I don't know like super details, but isn't there evidence that like there was a lot of interbreeding among the like different, you know, closely related like Homo species, like Homo erectus and Homo neanderthal and Homo sapien, us?
Yeah. But the
Like, I'm
Bargus
pretty
are not
sure we
interbreeding
have
with humans, right? Are they?
Wait, what was the question? Sorry.
Well, the question is... Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to repeat the question. This is your thing.
Yeah,
You
I
got
only,
it.
I only half heard for some
wondering
reason. Yeah, go ahead.
if like with migration and stuff like that, and then coming from boats from different continents, stuff like, is that a reference to something that happened in real history, like ancient history? I don't know, prehistory, I guess. Or
I mean,
no?
yeah, a 2-second Google search is telling me that the Neanderthals did build boats, or like there is growing evidence to suggest it. I don't know if that's what this is a reference to, but yeah, that is a good question. I didn't think of that, because the whole it has a very big reveal quality to it, right? That they used to use boats, that the ancestors came in boats, which which we don't have enough information about the world yet for it to mean much, but it does have this weight to it that maybe is not fully understood. So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe that's where this is coming from.
But is that like trying to imply they come from another continent which we don't know about, which is going to be
Yes.
relevant? Is
Well,
that
what we do learn in chapter 8 is that the Barghast are Imass.
yeah.
They're Imass who missed the ritual because they were too far away. So we don't know where they came from exactly, but I mean the concept's kind of, I think, at least at this point, is that they were all over. The Imass were hunting down Jaghut all over the world. I mean, every continent, like whatever. I don't know. Like they must have. I don't know what. I mean, from what we're given, I guess it was the tyrants that set them off. Like you throw in a tyrant or two, and all of a sudden the Imass are like, "Oh, we need to kill all the Jaghuts," and maybe that's why they got in boats and spread across the whole world. But these ones particularly, the Barghast, are ones who missed the ritual because they were too far away. So then they've come back, but they've also, I guess, evolved because they're not Imass anymore, but they're not quite. I don't know how to say that. Like not quite human. I don't know exactly what the races are in this world. Like I mean, there's Imass, but then where do
they're Neanderthals?
Kind of like the standard humans come from? Like where are they? What is their genetic stock? I don't know exactly. I mean, I guess they're Homo sapien for just kind of as a quick and easy.
I think,
but technically the Barghast are not. Well, though I guess at this point they are. I mean, well, at least they're merged with, because this is hundreds of thousands of years later. Because we know from earlier in this book, the ritual was, 300,000 years ago?
Yeah.
So this is hundreds of thousands of years later. So for all intents and purposes, the Barghast are Homo sapien. I mean, I'm sure they've intermarried. They're, maybe bigger, maybe a little different, maybe a little. Their skeletal system's a little different because they're more squat, more framed a little different. But
there's one more detail in genetic mixing that we haven't addressed here, which is the Barghast also interbred, or the Imass that became the Barghast interbred with the Thelem and Toblakai, which are themselves their own race.
Yeah,
in a sense,
their own race,
their own species.
Which do we know much about them except for just there was a guy named Toblakai in the last book? Like,
we know they're really big, and they live in the north.
Yeah, I was
gonna say, about all we know.
He's a giant, and that's all we know. Like, okay, so this giant guy was Toblakai, so therefore the Toblakai must be giants.
That explains though why the Barghast are not like they're tall.
So they are big. Okay,
they're bigger than average human. I agree.
Yes, as opposed to the Imass, who are actually a little shorter than the average human.
Yeah.
They're repeatedly described as being a bit shorter, like kind of stumpier, stockier. They have round features.
Squat. I think the word they like to use is squat.
There you go, squat.
But yes, you're right. I hadn't thought about that. You're absolutely right.
Sure. I guess for like 300,000 years is probably not long enough from a evolutionary standpoint to make much of a difference. I feel. Is it?
Well, if they're interbreeding with another race, I feel like that's gonna do
giants,
something.
Then that's kind of I think that's interesting because basically they started out as a smaller race and they've been interbreeding with this giants who are like 7, 8, 9 feet tall. They've turned into like 7 foot tall people.
Yeah.
Like,
well, now I have a question:
sense.
Which races can interbreed with each other? What's the genetic?
That is a very good question.
On this world, we haven't been given any that can't, because in fact, one of the priests or one of the mages who went into Quickbend is described as a half Jaghut. So we do know that Jaghuts can interbreed with humans. So, and in fact, and then we don't know Ikarium. We don't know what he's. I mean, we know he's half Jaghut. We don't know what the other half is.
Yeah.
So as far as I know.
About to light the certain section of the fan fiction community on fire. Kachane Shamal.
They're reptiles.
I'm just saying.
Have you met any half Kachane Shamal?
We were saying that it seems like they can all interbreed. I don't know.
I did say that. I those words came out of my mouth.
I'm sorry. You opened Pandora's box, so I had to let it all out.
Well, they probably all come from the
Thank you,
Matrix.
Carl, for
right?
taking that to the obvious conclusion. And no, I don't think we ever meet, or at least we certainly haven't met a half-chain Shamal yet. So that's a thing. That could be a thing, and we'll see.
I mean, what are the rules in our world for species breeding with each other? What's the conditions? I actually don't know.
Certain amount of DNA overlap,
Is that what it is? I don't know.
like an extremely high amount, like an
Okay.
absurdly high
Yeah.
amount. But there is an absurdly high amount of shared DNA between Homo neanderthal and Homo sapien, which is why
Yeah.
we were able to interbreed. Like, you couldn't have a kid with a chimpanzee.
I was gonna say, and I believe we actually have a lot of overlap with like a chimpanzee, but not enough.
Right.
So it's got to be a lot.
Okay, but lions
It
can
does
with tigers, right? And other cat, I
Yeah.
think so.
Ligers?
Yeah.
Well, usually, now, correct me if I'm wrong, usually some of this in nature, when it happens, like ligers and mules, like they can be born, but then they're like sterile and stuff. So like,
That's true.
yeah, they were born,
Good
but
point.
also like clearly there's something not quite right. You know, it's like genetics allowed them to be born, but yeah, you can't really continue because
Yeah,
you're
it's
not.
interesting.
This
No
isn't
way to
quite
think about it.
legit.
I wonder if it means anything. Maybe not. Probably not. But I wonder.
Stephen
you ever figure
Erikson,
it
what
out,
did you
Dan,
mean
let
by
us know.
this? Yeah.
Maybe there's a biological reason that's woven in the world or something that why that is the case. I don't know.
Magic.
Be right back. I'm going to use a Ouija board to speak to Tolkien and ask him about elf, dwarf, human interbreeding, and
Well,
ask
I
him
don't
what
think
he meant by
there's-
that.
I don't think there's much in Tolkien,
And
is there?
Ents. Don't forget the Ents.
Really?
An ent.
Well, there
Oh
you
my
go.
god.
They can all get in on it. Hobbits.
Yeah.
I think we get a bit of an answer to where the humans came from in the next book. Maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
From monkeys?
I really genuinely don't remember, so look forward to seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know the first human empire was in Seven Cities area. And in fact, actually, during this, what we read today, we got kind of a lot about it. We, because we got Trake in him kind of reflecting on how the diverse were created.
He's a human,
because
right?
they were soul taken that were Trake.
No.
Yeah.
Originally, he was the first hero of the first empire, and they may have even given us
But
the
the
empire's
first
name,
human
I don't
empire.
remember.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the first human empire. That's the important qualifier. And the diverse are soul taken that have been splintered. So like these very powerful soul taken that now I've been splintered, and so instead of turning into one animal, I can turn into a bunch. He talked about that.
It's actually insane
that
how
was one thing I did.
Just how much world building is in these 2 chapters is insane.
Yes.
Like that all these things we're talking about, like it's
crazy.
When you start saying all of these out loud, it's like all the things we learned in 7 and 8 is absurd.
And then Trake, and then we learned that so Trake, he survived. He's 100,000 years old at this point. And he had surrendered to the beast a long time ago, so he was literally just a big tiger running around eating people. But then, and I don't know if we're given all the answers why, but now his humanity kind of came back to him right as he's being killed by these Kachain. And the point of it is because he's about to ascend to become a god of war. So I just thought, that was really interesting stuff. I thought,
great scene. Yeah, that's really
we get a bunch of name drops. Messembre, the big bear from the last book, we find out that was one of his like friends. And then there's another one. I can never remember his name. It's got a bunch. It's like RH and a bunch of Y's and L's.
Rylanderus. Yeah.
I do know he's in another book a little bit more, but he's no, he's not a jackal. He's
Yeah, no, he is. That's what he is. He's a big jackal.
Is he a jack? Okay. But he's I do remember his name. Like he's a character that pops up every here, now and then.
Can you remind me?
I just thought that was.
Did Messembre get eaten by the Azath house? Is that how, that's his end, right?
Yeah.
That sucks.
The tree, they grabbed him and pulled him down. Yep.
Because he's like
That
the
really
nice
does
one.
suck, yeah.
Yep.
I thought about that when I saw his name. I was like, ooh. Well, your best friend is about to get eaten by a house. Sorry, bud.
Yeah.
What was the ritual that Drake was referring to? Was it the same ritual that made the Imas still animus? That
No, it's a
was
different
so
one.
powerful that created the
no.
Divas? No? It was a
It's
different
the
one.
one that
don't,
brought the crippled god. It's
Oh, that
what brought the
ritual.
crippled
I
god
see.
into the universe.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
because
Is
they're
it?
talking about in
No,
the
it's
first
not.
universe.
Is it?
I swear that's
No. I thought
he
I
was
think
one
the
of the
Emperor
people
of
who
the First
did it.
Empire did something. I think, and I don't think we got all the details
Is that
yet, but
Kalor?
I believe
That's Kalor, though. That's what I'm
No.
saying.
Is it?
What?
No, the
no,
first
not
Empire's
that
not-
empire.
isn't
The empire, the first empire of the Seven Cities. It's a different empire, completely
Oh,
different.
right. That
It's
was
in
a
seven
different
cities.
continent.
Yeah.
We saw the ruins of it in the last book when Eborg and stuff.
It's the same
wound up
ritual
in.
that was mentioned there, right? With the diverse of the soul
Oh,
taken.
that.
And...
But
Oh,
there's
that's right.
another
That's right.
Oh,
ritual.
you're
That's right.
right.
It's a
You're right.
different ritual.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, okay.
Are there multiple
and
human
I'm-
first empires?
Yes.
Yes. Well, wait, is Calor human?
Yes.
I don't know, but I'm coming for Steven Erikson.
Probably. I think it's
He
mentioned.
can't
that-
get away with this.
I mean, they all
I
have
just know
inside.
Trake and all this is the first empire that is in Seven Cities, not Jaruku.
They all have this
You're
joke
right, yeah.
about how somebody else wants to lay claim to the title of First Empire,
Yeah.
right? I think
Mhm.
in the second book too, somebody said, "Oh, the arrogance of them calling it the First Empire." I
Yeah.
think that belongs to the
Well,
Tyrannosaurus,
and I was gonna say,
and Drake jokes about it too.
I'm 99% sure that this empire was long after Calor's. Calor's was way before. That was 300. Well, no, I forget when. That was. I'm almost 100% sure this is way after that.
Yeah, I think you might be right. That's crazy.
But speaking of world building that happens in these chapters, we also learned a little bit about the chaining, and the part that I'm most interested in because I don't know very much about the timelines, but we know that Hood, the first sword of what's his name, Kellinved,
Dasim Ultor?
yeah, Dasim Ultor, his we know that he had something to do with Hood, and his daughter was kidnapped, or Hood did something to his
Well,
daughter.
he
and-
was the first sword of Hood. They've mentioned that
Yeah.
before. He
Right.
was like the first sword. He was the warrior of Hood.
Right, but now he seems to be a reincarnation of a previous person named Dasim Ultor, who was in, or Decimbre, is it? Who was
December.
at the chaining. And
Well, I looked into that when we talked about that back in the day, and there's been multiple chainings. That is the actual, Dasim Ultor was not there at the original chaining. He was at the, I guess the last chaining, to kind of reinforce the chains. So I don't think he's a reincarnation of anybody. I think he's Dasim Ultor.
no, it says
He was serving under Hood.
So this is the line, and tell me how much of it is metaphorical. Okay. Dasim Ultor, who was broken by Hood's taking of his daughter at the time of the chaining. This was a devastating blow. Dasim Ultor, the first sword reborn. Okay, maybe Dasim Ultor is a reincarnation of someone else. Okay, it's not.
Yeah,
he wasn't a reincarnation of himself. But
so at the last chaining, I guess maybe and that was something interesting because it was revealed because Lady Envy thinks about how maybe it was her fault for not being there that Dasim Ultor's daughter was taken. So, apparently at the last chaining, maybe it required a life, and Hood took Dasim's daughter instead of Lady Envy, who wasn't there, and that's what led Dasim Ultor to turning on Hood. But that would be recent. That would be since the Malazan Empires existed.
But it's the time of the chaining with capital T and capital C, not the last chaining.
But that doesn't make any sense that it was thousands of years, because Dasim Ultor was a mortal serving with the Malazan Empire who became Decembre. And that was what. Now, can you read the last bit of that quote where it talks about that part?
it's this was a devastating blow. Dacimaltor, the first sword reborn.
Okay.
Really cool.
And well, it's like, somewhere it talks about references him being December too.
Yeah,
But-
exactly. And
So
December
yeah,
is
so I
far older than Dacimaltor, right? Yeah, there was something.
mean,
I think it was
maybe okay.
envy. And these aren't humans thinking these things or talking about these things. These are elder
Yeah.
gods. So their time span,
Yeah.
like it's
Well,
not like
then I'm
some
gonna just say that
mythology that's repeated.
maybe Steve Erikson retconned it. Maybe he changed his mind later on, because I do know Dacimaltor was just a guy that was, part of. Well, he wasn't just a guy. He was first sword of the Malazan Empire. He served under, all that. So, like, I do know that his daughter was mortal. Yeah, that has to be recent. Like, there's no way that was back way in the past.
Maybe they're changing.
But also, I can't remember the exact quote, but it references his breaking with Hood, and it mentions him being Decembre, and that as part of it, because he's grown into being Decembre, and so that was kind of like a natural, like,
Yeah, that's the
made it
next.
sound like,
That's
of course,
the next line.
he couldn't serve under Hood because he was becoming something greater.
What were you saying, Dan?
But yeah, no, I looked into this because it was in Guard of the Moons where they first referenced him being there at the chaining, and I was like, how does that make any sense at all? Like, I don't understand. And I dug into it, and no, like, I'm pretty sure Steven Erikson has retconned some stuff from the first book. Like, what, I can't remember. People call it like Gardens of the Moon isms or something, where
Yeah,
like
but this
he
is
kind
the
of states
third book.
something in Gardens of the Moon that I know.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. It doesn't make sense for it to be way back in the past. Like, it just can't, because Dacimaltor didn't exist back then. Like, he's been recently born.
But what were you saying, Dan?
I was wondering if maybe they're chaining different pieces of the god. I mean, it did break into many pieces. I don't know if when you find one, they just chain it or something.
Maybe. Yeah, that makes sense. And then the most recent chaining, and they refer to the whole thing as the time of the chaining. That could work. Yeah, I'm trying to find the.
I just know when questioned about it, it seems like the answer is the most recent chaining.
Okay.
Like, which I personally, when I read Guardians of the Moon, that did not read how it, that like that, but like that has been, like, when I looked it up, that was the answer everybody kept saying was the most recent chaining.
Okay. Yeah, the line is Dacim, his champion, Decembre, had grown to rival his power. That's why Hood did whatever he did. Consider from Dacim's fall.
He's grown. He.
Yeah, there's a lot of consequences.
So before he was December, he was just a mortal man. Like, he was just a guy.
Yeah.
Serving Hood, but and well, I mean, he's kind of like the model of what we've seen of ascending. Like, I mean, really, I think at this point we've been given enough information. I mean, he is somebody who started out as somebody with the Malazan Empire. He rose up to be First Sword, and also he's like, I don't know, I don't think they call him Mortal Sword of Hood, but he's basically really important to Hood, and he becomes so popular, so amazing, so his name is just renowned by so many people that he ascends. I mean, that's the December part.
Yeah, good so. I don't know.
Yeah. Cool. I think we've covered pretty much everything. Was there any? Well, I don't know if we've covered everything, but we've talked for nearly 2 hours and we got through as much of it as we could. That was a lot. In these chapters.
Chapter 7 was so much too. It was so long. Well, did you want to talk about quotes, Varsha?
Yeah, let's do quotes. I don't think I have very many. Yeah. The wild mane, your power feeds on the very blood of my eternal soul. By light's wild mane.
Let me see. I know I had one or two. Let me look real quick.
Oh, this one, I think. Oh, yeah. Kral about Krupp, I think, when he says, I am sort of repeating the quote from before, but I want to extend it. The discussion between Talk and Krull, when Talk wants to know why Krull wants to release them from the Panions here, and he says, an odd question, mortal. I speak of compassion. There are gifts unimagined in such efforts. A man who dreams has shown me this, and indeed you shall see for yourself. So I think the man who dreams is Krupp here, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, sure. I didn't think about that.
Oh,
And Krupp
you know,
showing a
we
god
didn't.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't really talk about him. But I gotta say, Varsha, the chapter 8 went a long way to making me remember. You know, like Krupp's pretty awesome. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I know you're Krupp fangirl number one,
Yes.
and yeah, what he does with I'd forgotten all of this stuff with the Mabe and his compassion towards her.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's a big player in that thread
And then
for sure.
and I'm not finding it. I thought I had marked the quote with the dreams and faith thing that he had talked about with her that I really liked.
Who was it?
Because yeah, it was Krupp talking to, well, it might have been Mabe thinking about Krupp talking to her. But you know, it's like this whole like faith and dreams, because he's telling, you know, because he's seen her dreams, and oh gosh, I can't remember it all, but it was really good.
It's on page 367 in this edition. Manic. The dreams of hope and desire, or the dreams of sleep. Is that it?
Yeah, well, that's nice, but no, it says they're twins. Faith and dreams are twins, or something.
Yeah, she's been seeing some strange dreams where she's
this version, not same chapter.
Yeah, it's yeah, I think it might be an earlier page than that. But, oh yeah, Krupp further informs that Faith has a twin equally sweet, and that is Dreams. Yeah, Faith and twins. To discount such sweetness is to dismiss the truth of her gifts, Lars.
Yeah.
There were some funny things in this chapter too. For like, it's always fun to go back to the Malazan squads. All their exchanges are funny. But any other quotes, or are we good to wrap up?
Yeah, I loved. We won't talk about it, but just all the stuff with Perrin and Ansi and on the mountain. Like, I thought that was great.
Oh yeah.
Like, they're so funny. But no, I think that's it for me. I think I'm good.
Oh, the epigraph.
Anything for Dan, for you?
Go ahead, Dan.
Oh
no.
Yeah. The epigraph to chapter 7 was beautiful, but it's long. But I'll just read the snippets that I highlighted. As I walk down the last years, clothed in darkness, as are all old men haunted by memories. And there's also the bit about how I cared and loved in my heart, have expunged all sense of glory from my thoughts. It's about soldiers. It was beautiful. I really like this. Oh, sorry, it's not the epigraph to chapter 7. It's the epigraph to this whole section. Yeah.
I just backed up a page. I see what you're reading. Yeah, it's the epigraph to book 2.
Cool. Any other quotes? No, last call. Okay, then
I think I'm good.
I think we're good. So we'll be reading chapters 9 through 11. I think I forgot to say that at the beginning, but we'll create a forum post. But 9 through 11 for next week. They're shorter chapters, so it's still 100 pages in this edition, maybe slightly more than. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.